Hello and welcome to the program On the Move in Doordarshan. I am Partho Chakrabarty. My guest in this edition of the program brings enormous amount of scholarship and expertise on the field. He is Subimal Bhattacharjee, a son of the soil from Assam. He is absolutely a great speaker on important think tanks across country, across the world. We are indeed fortunate to have him here in our place in Guwahati. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Subimal is an expert on cyber security related issues, defense related issues. He speaks extensively on contemporary technology. We'll ask him a wide range of questions on all that. And to begin it, Subimal, if I have to ask you, with the whole world is talking about the Taliban in Afghanistan. You bring a lot of expertise, a lot of scholarship on the field as far as defense-related issues are concerned. Tell us a little bit, how does India stand on this issue?
Well, it's a most important topic of our times, particularly on the defense and strategic front. And what's very interesting is that in this digital world, in this connected world, cyber world, the Talibans are a class apart. They are absolutely away from the digital world. So they operate in a world that possibly was existing 50-60 years back. However, the pace, the tenacity and the lethality which they have operated in the last few months, especially in the run-up to the capture of Afghanistan and then finally, Kabul, they have shown that their sheer determination has led them forward, where they would have immediately been wiped off with such a strong multinational force presence for 2 decades. So there is a lesson from them. Of course, that's not a lesson that anyone wants. They are a real threat for our country. Definitely they are a threat. They are a threat for the whole humanity, because they have sheltered terrorists, militants, and that is where the whole issue lies. Americans invaded Afghanistan in 2001 after the dastardly attacks in New York and in Pentagon, and the main reason was that the Taliban were harboring the Al-Qaeda terrorists. Now, after 20 years, America and all the other multinationals associated with America in this fight, they all had to withdraw. It was not one of the best withdrawals, but what is very worrying is that such withdrawal at a short notice has created a lot of disturbance and instability in the South Asian region, particularly for India, because it is very well known that Pakistan has been shielding and supporting the Taliban militants over all these years, has been their force multiplier in terms of providing them sanctuary, in terms of providing them arms and ammunition, in terms of providing them with the logistics. So from India's point of view, it is definitely worrying, and the worrying part is, since a lot of these fundamentalists and Taliban regime, they have looked at jihadi pursuits where Fidain attacks or human sacrifices on their own, suicide bombers, they are important characteristic of carrying out their sinister designs. So this is what has happened, and this is what will really be something that we'll have to worry in the future, because right now they'll try to stabilize themselves. Right now they are trying to form a government, they are trying to see how they put the different systems in place to run the country. Definitely is not going to be a good system. There will be a lot of retrograde steps, but then after that there would be various elements, and very many times even fueled and motivated by Pakistan to create disturbances in various parts of our country along the eastern western border and also possibly the eastern border. Yeah. So I think India has to really worry about how the whole Taliban and post US withdrawal emerges as far as Afghanistan is concerned.
So, taking a cue of what you have said, if I have to go a little bit further, the whole world is talking of an inclusive government in Afghanistan, and India has been playing a wait and watch policy. India has been persistently pretty silent about the entire thing. Do you think the approach taken by the government as of now is taking care of its own interest first and then talk about a government in Afghanistan which is seeking recognition from all over the world?
No, definitely. I think Indian stand has been absolutely the right stand in the given circumstances. You didn't know whom you really could trust to talk. You don't know what is the agenda to which the Taliban would govern. The past experiences are really not good. So you have to have a wait and watch policy. Now, along with the wait and watch, definitely you would need also to see that your interests are protected as well as your relationship with the Afghans remain strong. Since time immemorial, India and the various communities in this country have had various interactions and very nice relationship with the Afghan nationals. India has not only helped them in their infrastructure building. India has also helped them to revive democracy, to revive the educational system, to allow scholarships for Afghans to come and study. So there has been a people-to-people relationship. So those things are very, very important from India's point of view. You can say they are the soft skills, but beyond the soft skills of diplomacy, there are many other lasting imprints that India have left. For example, India built the Afghan parliament. India built power plants. So, those are important for that nation's progress in the future. And I hope the Taliban understand that, this is something that they have to protect and, not go and destroy it. In the earlier instance, if you remember, the Buddhists, the Bamiyan statues were, bombed off and all. So I think they would be far much more mature this time, and India will take the right steps cautiously but definitely firmly.
Subimal, moving over to the larger perspective of security in this entire region, we had a very unfortunate encounter with China, and we are pretty cautious about their moves also. How do you see the emergence of the Taliban and the certain level of appropriation by the Chinese and the Pakistanis to give a semblance of recognition, probably not very formally, but the ISI head being there in Kabul? All these gives an indication that Pakistan and China is moving pretty fast against a regime which has 17 terrorists, after all, according to the UN list.
Yeah, so this is the worrying part again, that China and what role it would play in the near future and in the long term. As we all know, Chinese interests are absolutely against our nation's interests. They have been trying to foment troubles across the western sector as well as the eastern sector. The incursions that happen at various places at regular intervals since Xi Jinping has become the president has really been worrying. It has been trying to destabilize a relationship that was being built over the last 2 to 3 decades. So the Chinese enthusiasm, the Chinese aggression, not necessarily always in a very positive form, is something that is also worrying when you take Afghanistan into perspective in the particular geography. And China, the way it goes and tries to help nations so-called economically, but at the end of the day, they demand their pound of flesh in such a way that they are killing the economies of so many countries. The Sri Lanka is a absolute clear example in front of us. Similarly, there are many other nations. Now, So China's prospects here, from an Indian standpoint of view, is that not only it could foment trouble and instability by trying to mobilize some of the disgruntled elements or the remnants of the Taliban who don't get into the governance system to create trouble here, and at the same time also wreak havoc in the emerging Afghan economy, because right now the Afghan economy is at the point of collapse, and China might come along and say that we'll do so many things for you, and that is where I think the Chinese point is very, very important. Now when you have Pakistan again added to it, where who never has shown any good neighborly behavior with us for all these decades, and then the unholy alliance of Pakistan and China over all these years in trying to create tensions with India, I think that's again a bigger point of worry, that the Pakistanis have a lot of hold still on the Taliban. They have sheltered them for years when all other powerful nations were after them, and Pakistan's dubious role in trying to use terrorism as a form of foreign policy has now been exposed to the whole world. So these are some of the things that we'll have to worry about. One, China as such, Pakistan as such, and then China and Pakistan collectively.
So Vimal, you were the country head of one of the largest defense corporations on the world, General Dynamics. The Prime Minister recently visited the US, addressed the UN General Assembly. Wanted to ask you, India is buying a lot of stuff in terms of boosting its defense infrastructure. And how do you see India's capabilities getting a major enhancement with the boosting of defense expenditure, especially in procuring state-of-the-art equipments?
See, one good thing about India across governments has been to keep the sources of weapon purchase separate. So years and decades we've been buying from the Russians or the Soviets, we've been buying from the French, we've been buying from the British, and we have been also buying from the Americans. Recently, in the last decade and little over that, we have sold, or the Americans rather have sold a lot of defense equipments to India which are of strategic interest to India. We are talking in the Northeast. If you see a lot of the C-17 Globemaster and C-130 aircrafts that were purchased from the US in the course of the last decade, they have really been helping in fast deployment, in relief measures, and in emergency situations. Likewise, they have been doing it in many other countries in our neighborhood when we have offered help, and of course even in our country, even in the recent Afghanistan evacuations also we have used those aircraft. What happens is that defense equipments and technology takes a lot of time to be built and inducted. There has been a tendency to buy most of this stuff, but there has been also a focus of Atmanirbharta, which the Prime Minister has been focusing for the last 6 years, and as a result of which a lot of defense capabilities in some niche areas are also happening in the country. So what has now happened is, particularly in the Indo-US defense relationships, it has not remained a buyer-seller kind of a relationship. It has become a partnership kind of a relationship, where while the larger product or the system preponderantly remains from that particular US company or group of companies, but a lot of the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 Indian companies fill up the subsystems. So as a result of which there has been capacity building within the country, there has been knowledge around defense manufacturing that has happened in the country, and we are definitely seeing that right now orders to Indian companies over all these years, every year it is increasing more than 5 to 7% in almost all the equipments for all the three services. So defense equipments remain very, very important. It's not only import everything, but also build up domestic capabilities, and I think the Make in India and the Atmanirbharta efforts are really showing the results, and many of the Indian companies not only are filling up these supply chain parts, but are themselves today exporting to some of the leading nations, and becoming part of the global supply chain networks also. Right. So overall, it's a win-win situation for the country.
Right. Subimal, I wanted to bring you to an area which is your specialization, something to do with security-related issues, cyber security. You have been a member of the Global Commission for Internet Governance. There are certain areas of concern, especially among the consumers who are on to digital transactions and all that, and they literally feel the punch when there are cyber-related issues where money is being stolen, and people really don't know what to do. So what's your advice on this? And there are huge number of companies which are offering UPI related services. So how do you explain that?
Yeah, so cyber security today has become very, very important. It is a very evolving subject. Cyber attacks are becoming very sophisticated, becoming very high in frequency, increasing in terms of their lethality, and in terms of how they can be destructive, irrespective of geography. If you see, in the last 1 decade, the number of cyber attacks have grown up by a few thousand times, if not more.
Yes.
The kind of crimes that are being committed are sometimes unbelievable at various levels. So to tackle that, you have to have a you can say multi-layered approach. Of course, first is the policy. You must have a national cybersecurity policy. A new national cybersecurity policy of the government should be announced very soon. Work has been happening on it. But there was a policy in place from 2013 which gave a certain direction in which you are looking at the cyber arena. Now, even within the cyber space, or even within the domains in which today the cyber attackers operate, it actually goes from sensitive institutions and governments right up to the individual human being. So the question that you are referring to, that how the kind of financial scams that are happening because of more and more people participating online, more so after the COVID-19 pandemic.
Exactly.
That's become really one issue that globally people are concerned. It's happening in a way that a certain amount of social engineering is used, and with the help of that social engineering, your credentials are stolen, or your credentials are taken by putting across to you certain questions in such a manner that you believe that you have to share your credential. So that's how a lot of people have been losing money in no time. Now, one thumb rule and one fundamental rule is there, that never trust anyone in the digital world. If you get an offer, if you get a request, if you get a request for info, please don't share. No banks, no financial institutions will ever ask that information. So as a result of which, one has to be very, very careful that never to share anything with anyone when a request comes from via the medium of internet, when someone is unknown to you.
Yes. And Subimal, are there any systems also in place to check this? Because many a times banks or financial institutions react when the scam has already been done. So by the time you get to recover your money and all, a lot of time has gone. Of course, there are constantly messages coming from the Reserve Bank of India and all other institutions to be careful about, as you said, not to disclose. But how do we go about? Because these transactions will increase, isn't it?
No, obviously, cyber crimes around such kind of attacks, primarily known as phishing attacks or phishing attacks, they definitely are worrisome. They definitely are increasing. And the sophistication of these attacks are also, the blended form in which such attacks are happening is also very worrisome, particularly, about the UPI payment method you mentioned. That's something that has been seen, that very many times people fall a prey, or their information is picked up, or someone has hacked and taken that information and doing the transactions. Of course, RBI can issue guidelines, circulars. The banks themselves would similarly do to their customer. But what's most important is banks and these institutions have to do regularly some cyber awareness program at various levels, whether it is at the school level, college level, at the the residents or the resident welfare association levels, or in a larger community framework. These things are very important. Everyone needs to be fed with what's happening in terms of the trends and what they should do. You see, you would have seen the warning in the cigarette packet that cigarette smoking is injurious to health. Still, after that, a lot of people smoke. So, but that also serves as a warning to many. So all the time you need to repeat what should not be done, and all, so that you are aware. Whenever you are doing a transaction, if you are being told that please do not share something with someone whom you do not know, I think those things make an impact. So a lot of money, I think the banks and financial institutions need to spend on awareness building, cyber security, cyber hygiene. These things should come up in the curriculum in terms of schools, colleges, everywhere. Everything is going online. Everyone is now doing something or the other online. So some basic cyber security measures in the form of some cyber hygiene, if they are practiced at an early age, they can really help from becoming a prey to such kind of pursuits by criminals and gangsters. Today there are organized criminal syndicates in specific places within the country also, who are regularly doing those cyber crime. The name Jamtara is very, very familiar with a lot of people.
Subimal, you address a lot of important think tanks across the world, across the country. You have written extensively on contemporary technology. Share with us some ideas about what's happening in the digital world. The digital media has made its big presence. Tell us a little bit how it has come to stay and how we got to believe. There's a whole lot of fake news out there. People exactly doesn't know what is happening. They fall prey to such news, becoming very reactive to those inflammatory news which appears, because it's not the mainstream media. So what's the scenario like and how do we address it?
No, I think this is a very big issue, fake news you mentioned, and per se the whole digital media, the evolving digital space where you are flooded with information, right or wrong. Many times you don't have the wherewithal to understand if a particular piece of information is true or fake. So hence it becomes very, very important at the regulatory level to be able to devise ways and means to be able to alert people, and also to stop such kind of fake propaganda. And that the Information Technology Act 2000, which was amended in 2008, there are provisions which are today used to handle this. And you would have noted that earlier this year the intermediary guidelines rules were also notified by the government, basically which calls for the social media platforms also to take some measures on their side to be able to be to help the government curb the menace of this kind of fake news. So I think as time evolve and some measures are taken, and then voluntarily all the platforms, they also weed out or remove the false propaganda and information, I think things will improve. But as such, so many newer avenues of information dissemination happens and all. So we would have to live with fake news as such. It's not going to vanish one fine day. We must know that we cannot trust everything that we see on our device. The issue also is that today the mobile phone has become, you can say, one of the most important assets that a human being has. It's so close to him that he trusts whatever he sees that and forms an opinion out of it. So it's very important to understand that not everything that comes to the device from the various places we browse are always true or beneficial to us. Very many times they are more harmless than even someone who would want to physically harm us.
No, this is one area which I would like to bring you in a little bit more deeply. The government, as you said very clearly to YouTube, Twitter, and all these companies, and even the courts are now discussing about it, that these companies are saying that they are intermediaries, like they are just platforms which is being used by the common people. So, what's your stance on this area? This is a place where they are actually a platform where these news are getting disseminated. So do they have responsibilities, and do they have to have some sort of an interactive mechanism with the common people that they should react to stop this? Is it possible?
So all these intermediaries that you mentioned, the social media intermediaries, they are bound by the laws of the country. And they have to abide by whatever laws have been put in place by the government, and the government's lawmaking process is just not 1-2 ministers or officers' prerogative. It's debated, is discussed in parliamentary committee, and it comes up, and it by and large covers the societal issues around that time on a particular subject. So now here, if you see in a few months back when we had these issues with these large social media companies in the country, they were basically trying to have or pointing out some of the issues around the intermediate guidelines, rules that were notified in February and which were to be implemented from the month of May. And there wasn't anything of big concern. For example, you needed to put a grievance officer, a resident compliance officer. So those persons had to be of Indian origin, and this company should have taken the steps right at the beginning to make the appointment for them before their deadline date. They all woke up towards the end thinking that possibly they will get more time from the government around that. Besides that, there are some points. Of course, WhatsApp has also now gone to the court about those guidelines, particularly about the traceability issue. But what happens is that from a law enforcement point of view, sometimes when you see, it becomes very difficult that if you are not able to get the source and the propagation networks blocked or identified, then something could become a big menace. In India, communal riots could start in no time if things are not blocked. So I think government has a point, but at the same time, the rights of the individual users to communicate, that also has to be there. Very many times you would also see that to prevent riots, to prevent some internet is shut down. So now that becomes kind of a you can say something that individuals disapprove or dislike because they remain disconnected and all. But then possibly that is the only solution left with the government at this point of time, because today everyone is communicating digitally, is mobilizing digitally, and if such mobilization happens via this medium, then it could turn catastrophic. Hence, government takes off such kind of content or tries to block the network. There are laws, there are rules.
Is there a mechanism, Subimal, where the government also balances during such acts, as you said, violence, inflammatory speeches, government shuts down the net and all that? Do you see that technology going leaps and bounds and to also address these issues so that, individual users can continue to use it, but there would be a mechanism not to allow inflammatory things to go?
So there are, algorithmic based approaches available. There are controls at the ISP levels.
Yes.
Now fact checkers are also being, employed by many of these social media intermediaries. So I can say that this is an evolving, scenario where an effort by almost all the stakeholders is being made to address the issues so that it doesn't, spill out of control. It's very important. Internet was started as a free medium. It has to remain as a free medium. So many things have happened because internet has been there today. It has definitely made life easier.
Yeah.
But it has also, become a kind of a medium of distrust for many. People fear. People who have lost money, people who have been bullied, they never think that this is a medium that they want to be. So I think these are something that evolves. The government has a role to play, the citizens have a role to play, the service providers have a role to play. Everyone has to take steps to see that the medium can remain safe.
Subimal, on contemporary technology and the type of policies which needs to be put in place, do you think we are in the right track? Because as you said, the mobile has become such an important step, and you can't just deny WhatsApp, Facebook or YouTube, because these are important sources of information and dissemination. So do you see that we are on the right track? The technology is available, it is right there in the public domain to keep us guarded?
No, I think all these platforms, they also have a responsibility. They are big names. They have become popular because people have trusted them. People have believed in the story that they sold. So with that also the responsibility increases, and with time they also have to improve and take action. I think we are seeing that on the ground. I think as an individual user, you sign up the terms and conditions of this platform, and then if you follow the cyber hygiene, some predetermined moves that you make, you decide this is my red line, this is what I'll not cross, this is what I'll see, this is what I'll avoid. I think somewhere you bring a certain sense of discipline. Now, if everyone collectively has his own space defined and all, I think he also improves on the network or the whole ecosystem. So personally, I would still think that there is a lot of work to be done. Technology will always not solve these issues. The criminals will continue doing crimes. You cannot read everyone's mind. So they will do their act, but how do you control everything technology? No, it is not possible. So it has to be a mix of some societal understanding, a balance between technology, laws, ethics and practices. Though that's how it has to be harmonized.
Subimal, you keep on coming to the Northeast, and it is important. I take some of your opinions about how do you see the Northeast doing in the last few years. There has been a huge impetus on infrastructure. There has been a huge impetus on expenditure of the government on social sectors. Have you seen tangible outputs on the ground?
No, definitely. Infrastructure development in the region in the last 5-6 years have significantly improved. People within the region have started moving a lot. Some of the trains now with Vistadome coaches, they also are trying to open another sort of vistas around tourism. The hidden potential of the region, whether it be it in culture, whether it be in wildlife tourism, whether it be in religious tourism, these are something that has to be explored. The innate talent of the various communities of the region, the uniqueness around customs, around dress, around food habits, all of these things, they need propagation, they need to go out. So the effort has been there, one, first to build the infrastructure, and then two, to see that these communities from the region get outlets to the other parts of the country and to the world. The internet and the medium of social media, as well as many of the festivals and all that are being done, are going in that direction, that a lot of people are knowing about the region, hence a lot of more visitors are also coming in the region. And at the same time, along with this, the focus on actist policy of the government is also very, very important, because it then automatically opens the gateway northeast to the neighboring countries. Of course, proximally Bhutan, Myanmar and Bangladesh, definitely they benefit, but beyond that, the ASEAN countries, Thailand, Laos and Cambodia, right up to Singapore, there are so many nations with which there are some cultural exchanges and similarities that can benefit business wise. The potential of the Northeast, to be able to be economically viable on their own, to improve the productivity with the help of exports in the region, with the help of tourism around the region, is immense. I think this is a focus that the government has been working on, and some results are really being seen on the ground.
So Vimal, there is one aspect about the Northeast when we talk about it is poised for growth, it is poised for better prosperity of the people, as also the entire region. Do you think the intervention of the government through various central government schemes have actually made a big impact on the people of the region?
No, definitely. The central government schemes are the actual money available today that is going to the people. The direct benefit transfers are going to the people. Otherwise, over all these years, a lot of the money used to be siphoned away. I don't say that corruption has 100% gone away, but I think there is perceptible improvement, because money is now directly reaching the beneficiary. Similarly, these schemes that go to the other parts of the country, coming to the region, also makes available the funds also into the region. Most of the state governments of the region are dependent upon the central government for their funding. Local avenues for productivity definitely have to be improved, but what comes from the center and their accountability and the utilization certificate, what all is being pushed, I think there has been a perceptible improvement, and hence money is also coming in. That's very, very important from the perspective of northeastern region, which financially still has to do a lot of homework to be able to come up to the mark. And it's not the fault of the state governments and all. It's that industrialization hasn't happened in the region for a long time. Neither the agricultural production has been seen from a business point of view holistically. So the tax generation, the revenue generation from the region, that really couldn't have taken away, and primarily this was because of insurgency for a long time, and then after insurgency, that perception that it's a disturbed area, it's not investor friendly, remains for a long time. One incident that happens again shakes the confidence of people who start thinking, okay, now I think things are improving, we should go and invest. So it's very important to see that peace and stability remains in the region, and that is what also has been in the focus in the last few months. If you see, the Home Minister himself has been pushing a across many of the insurgent issues that has been going for a long time. The recent Karbi accord that has been signed with 6 Karbi splinter groups, the agreement with the Bodos that happened in February, these are all avenues to usher in peace. Similarly, the conversations that are happening with the militant groups of the other states, particularly Manipur, I think it's all going towards certain conclusion. So peace and stability is very important to improve the perception and then investment. And definitely, as I said, Act-East policy gives a great opportunity. Northeast has industrial policy from the central government side that benefits. The Northeast Industrial Development Scheme gives a lot of subsidies for setting up industries in the region. A lot of tax holidays are also given. So people should take advantage of this and make it into an economic hub, sustainable economic hub, where the beautiful environment is also protected, as well as tourism and related industries are given a fillip and taken forward. Even along with all of that, the IT and the BPO industry has a real prospect in the region, because the people are very good in their diction of English words and accents and quality of English speaking. So that always helps in trying to expand the numerical IT and BPO services in the other parts of the country also to the region.
Right. So Subimal, on that positive note, again, we would like to wind up this interview, but just this conversation to take it to a logical end. I'd just like to ask you, how do you see the Northeast poised for development in the next few years, with so many welfare schemes being initiated by the central government?
I personally feel that the time for Northeast has come. Perceptions are changing quite fast. Some of the governments in place are really trying to do work. Various schemes are being run. Various opportunities are also being created. Young people are being motivated. I think the youths of the region have to take on the cudgels upon themselves to look at gainful employment and gainful economic activity, and all the past issues around insurgency and looking for life below the horizon. I think those things should be totally nipped at the beginning. And I would still think that one thing is very important from Northeast context: economy has to go over identity. If too much of identity is wore up the sleep at every stage, it's not going to really help. Everywhere across the world, you would have seen the economy, wherever it has gone up, wherever the economy integration has happened, that has led to better quality of life, and hence better even in terms of identity projection or identity development. So I think that's something that we have to focus on, really, to build the economy of the region. That will take care of many of the other issues.
On that positive note, Subimal, thank you so much for sharing your time. It was really indeed a pleasure talking to you on a wide range of issues. That was Subimal Bhattacharjee, an independent advisor on contemporary technology, on cyber-related security issues. He had shared so much of his time to talk on a wide gamut of issues. Thank you for watching.